Today we're going to unlock one of the most powerful frameworks for guitar players, and that's the CAGED system. If you've ever wondered how to move beyond, basic chords and move around the fretboard, CAGED really helps you understand chords, scales, and how solos connect. To start with, the core concept is that playing down here, when we first learned guitar, this is my C, this is my D, my E, my A. These are what we think of as chords, but really they're not chords, they're actually a shape. Each shape can be adapted into minor versions, so we've got the A here, it becomes the A minor, we've got the E, it becomes the E minor, but they are shapes. But before we fully jump into the CAGED system, let's see how a capo helps you understand how chords actually work. So here's my A. Play it however you want. But if I want to play an A sharp, if I put the capo on here, same exact shape. So I'm playing an A shape, but that's no longer an A. A shape, different chord, because I've moved where the nut is using this capo. And so now this is actually an A sharp. And so if I move it one more time, I'm actually playing a B. I'm using an A shape, but playing a B. Guess what? We can go up the entire fretboard. Here I'm playing a C with my A shape. Here I'm playing my C sharp. Guess where I'm going to go? I'm going to go up the entire fretboard. Here I'm playing a D using my A shape. When you start thinking of the chords as shapes, here's my D sharp, playing with an A shape. Here's my E. Here's my F. It's starting to get a little hard to use all my three fingers, and I'm just going to use my finger like that. The capo is basically acting as a movable nut. It's pushing everything up one fret while letting me keep the same easy shape under my fingers. So whether we move the chord with a capo or we move it with our hand, we're playing the same shape. Higher up the fretboard, and we've got a new chord. Same chord shape, but a new chord. So what are CAGED shapes? So CAGED shapes essentially do exactly the same thing. So if I take my A shape here, I can use my other finger back here to play the bar chord. So there's my A sharp, using an A shape. B, C, C sharp, D, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, and back to my A again. So I have my capo right here, and I've got my one movable shape. But I've got 5 of these open chords: C, A, G, E, and my D. And guess what that spells? And so there's 5 major chords which you can play at the open, in the open position. But I've got 7 open natural major chords. We have A, we don't have B, we have C, we have D, we have E, we don't have F, and we have G. So the B and the F we don't know how to play. That's where the CAGED system comes in. Think of it like Shakespeare's famous line, to be or not to be. If you want it to be, we actually have to play a B chord by sliding up an A. We take the A shape and we just slide it up 2 frets, and suddenly we've got a B chord. That's the magic of movable shapes. And so we can't actually play all of our natural chords without having these movable shapes. So that's the magic of the CAGED movable shapes. The entire CAGED system is built from those 5 chord shapes I just mentioned. And did you know that if you take those 5 letters, there's 120 possible words we could get. So if you did an anagram of those 5 letters, there's 120 possible letter combinations. Only 2 of them form an actual English word. And those 2 words are CAGED and CAGED. So it's crazy, crazy coincidence that CAGED can be spelt from those 5 notes. And guess what is really, really important about the CAGED name is that it actually tells you the position of the next chord. So here I have a C. And what's important about a chord is typically knowing where its root is. So here my root is on the A string. So you got A sharp, B, C. There's my C root right here. So the next chord in CAGED is A. And so using that as my root, there's my A shape. So CAGED not only tells you what movable chords there are, but it tells you the order that they come in. So it's kind of the most perfect coincidence for guitarists that we have a English word, caged, and it tells us the order that the chords come in. Imagine if it had come out saying something like Gedka or something like that. Not nearly as catchy. So I'm going to go caged in order. We've got C. And from this root here, we're going to play C. But this is using the A shape, so C, A. Now the next root is up here. Big stretch for me. There's my G shape, so C, A, G. Next place I can play my C right here, and that's using my E shape. That's this shape down here. This is it right up here. I'm playing a C, but I'm using an E shape. And then lastly, you guessed it, it's the D shape. So C, A, G, big stretch for me, E, and then the D shape right down here. So CAGED, 5 chords. It tells you exactly the sequence that they occur. That's the kind of real magic. And there's only 2 words, CAGED and CAGED, that could come from those notes. So we got really lucky. So let's start with something simple, power chords. Power chords are really just stripped down versions of full chords. Here's my E shape, slid up. To do a power chord, all I'm doing is playing the root note, the 5th, and the root note again. So that, just a snippet of that. I'm not bothering to put all my fingers down. I could do it with just the 3 fingers, so. But it's a snippet of a CAGED chord. Off the A string, there's my A root, so there's a C power chord. Don't know what I'm playing, but easy to play. Put some distortion on and you can be playing all over the neck. And they sound really great in rock and punk, and I'm sure you've heard their sounds everywhere else. So CAGED doesn't just help with chords, it also makes scales much easier. So if you think about where my root is, that's coming out of this root on the A string. But here's my root over here. So that's my E shape right here. This is the scale that comes out of that E shape. So it helps root your scales based around which chord you are playing. So you can also use it for rhythm guitar. I could play that in any key because those are all movable shapes. So there, move it down 1. Move it here. If you want more guitar theory and lessons like this, check out the playlists. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more tutorials like this.